We are Meridiam. In this podcast, we will share with you all there is to know about the philosophy behind our projects, the diversity of the expertises, and our strategy. Join us on this journey as we uncover the transformative world of Meridiam and the minds driving innovation in public infrastructure development. Today, we're honoured to introduce Thierry Déau, Meridiam's CEO, who will be your guide through this enlightening exploration. Together, we'll venture beyond the surface to reveal the heart and soul of our mission. Hello, Thierry. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this opening episode. Could you start by introducing yourself to our listeners who maybe don't know who you are?
I'm Thierry Déau, the founder of Meridiam. And at Meridiam, we like and we want to build projects that contribute to people and the planet.
And why Meridiam? Where does the idea come from?
The idea of Meridiam came from a desire to align a number of things. One was, I used to build infrastructure for the long term, transport infrastructure in particular, but noticing that the beneficiaries of the infrastructure were actually long-term beneficiaries, and at the same time, the people investing in the infrastructure were seeking long-term returns. So the idea was to align the interests of the public and the beneficiaries and the stakeholders of the infrastructure with a long-term perspective for investors. So that is why we created this sort of first-time long-term 25-year fund to be able to really create new infrastructure, but also build them for the benefit of the communities.
And why did you choose to emphasize environmental and climate issues right from the beginning?
Because, environment and climate is sort of consubstantial to infrastructure. In a way, for us, it was also, if you invest for the long term, you had to de-risk the investment for the long term. So managing the environmental issues and managing also social issues and managing climate issues were a way to actually protect the investment. And that's how initially we sold it to investors, is that if you do invest for the long term in infrastructure, you have to be best in class in environment and climate.
Thank you, that's for the context. But if we delve a bit deeper, what does a Meridiam project look like?
So a Meridiam project first has to respond to a public demand, and it has to serve the public in an essential way. So we are very much focused on essential public service. And so whether you're talking health, mobility, education, energy, that essential piece is quite important and fundamental in terms of our ability to be long-term investors in it. So putting a project together, it's usually a greenfield, so a project to be built. That would be the typical project for Meridiam, but it's an engagement and a discussion with typically the public sector, but also the stakeholders of the project to come up with the best design and solutions for the projects in terms of really identifying what they are expecting as an outcome for the project. Whether you're talking, a tram line where people are trying to really reduce their commuting time. And so all that needs to be taken into account. Then a project for Meridiam is based on a long-term contractual relationship with the public sector. And I think that's a fundamental asset within our projects, because the ownership of the project, the brick and mortar, are still owned by the public sector. We actually only own the right to use it and to derive revenues from it. Then we finance it, we have it built, and we manage it for the long term.
Can you develop a bit further? Why is it so important to have a long-term perspective?
It is important to think long-term because that's the best way to deliver the best service over time. It's better to take a counterexample to show what it means. If you, for example, let's say you want to build a a road between 2 points because there's quite a lot of traffic and you need to move goods and services and people across those two. How you build your roads is going to be very different whether you want it to last for 20 years, whether you want to be able to refurbish it after 7 or 10 years. But the level of service that you offer the customers and the users will be very different. If you have a road in poor state after 7 years, and then you have to start doing quite a lot of works again and disturb traffic.
And for my personal understanding, is there a connection between positive impact and financial efficiency?
I mean, it's remains to be proven by the numbers, but that's intuitively, I believe so. There is a link because positive impacts actually does reduce volatility in terms of the perception of risk that people may have.
Historically, the world of finance is governed by a search for profitability, and you offer a different approach because you take into account the positive impact that your investment can have. How do you reconcile these two approaches?
Now, for me, there is no contradiction between the two. We have to seek both. So when we engage with our investors, we promise them both financial returns and the other extra financial returns, in a way, impact. And I think for many of our investors, it's quite important. So for us, it's not a question of arbitrage between the two. It's a question of delivering both. And it's really a question of partnership. And as long as the partnership works in a way where everybody gets what they need from it, it will continue.
Okay, so you've talked about the importance of having a positive impact, but what is a positive impact? Is it possible to measure the positiveness of an impact? Do you have some tools, or are you working on developing some tools at the moment?
It took us quite a long time, and we built this tool called Simple to be able to provide for every SDG a quantified impact contribution based on a scale of 1 to 5 for each project, for each portfolio, and for the overall portfolio. If you think about SDG 8, which is more about economic development, job creation, and things like that, you go, for example, I'll take the port of Owendo in Gabon. So the way I'm oversimplifying because it's a bit more complex than that, but if you take some indicators within this port that will sort of be plugged in to give the final number on SDG 8, it will be, for example, the economic output, how much of the export through this, it's not a people sport. It's it's a port for nickel, for everything. But the output of this port is a real contribution to the GDP of the country. But that you can measure. The number of jobs that this port has created and is maintaining over the year, you can measure. You can also measure sort of the efficiency of this port compared to other ports of the area. And these typical indicators will be fed into this sort of big matrix and provide a level of SDG contribution for SDG 8. And so it's every year for every single asset.
Okay, great. Now let's talk about tomorrow. What direction do you want to take? Do you have one? Some new goals or some new sectors you want to get into?
I mean, I think we are very much definitely sticking to our motto, which is for people and the planet. So whatever investment is compatible with that, whatever sort of product we could sell to limited partners to contribute to these goals. So climate transition are big themes for us, and which we've started investing heavily into since 2016. But the social part and the economic part is also quite important to us and remains quite important to us. But within these themes, I think with the same methodology of long-term approach, so we will continue to expand in all the things that create a better transition, so energy systems, efficiency, but also looking at things like nature-based solution for carbon capture and enhancing biodiversity, which is one of the pillars of our impact goals.
And do you have any specific projects planned for the near future that you can tell us about? Projects that would allow you to reach the goals you were talking about?
I think a few things that we are exploring at the moment to fit these goals is sustainable infrastructure in emerging markets, for example. How do you feed Africa in a sustainable way? That is something that we are exploring quite heavily to see how we can provide a financial fund to do that, but also build the whole value chain to be able to contribute. The other important theme that we're looking at is how do we create economic model for nature-based solution for carbon capture and enhancing biodiversity, which I think is a very difficult nut to crack. And so that's something we're working on at the moment for the future.
And how do you plan to stay on top? What do you need? What's required?
And first of all, by doing what we say and saying what we do. And I don't think everybody does that yet. And we see the wave of regulation, in particular in Europe with SFDR, is actually putting the pressure for people to be able to demonstrate what they actually do rather than just say. And I think the work that we've done in the past and how we've been put us in a fairly good position to be compatible with this regulation much faster than many others.
Okay, last question. The world is currently facing big challenges, as you know, climate change and resource inequalities. Do you think we've taken the right path? I mean, collectively.
I think thinking too much about whether we're going in the right direction or not. I don't say we shouldn't, but sometimes too much thinking and not enough action. So I rather act in a very definite way and determined way to contribute to fighting climate change. I think all small actions are necessary, big ones as well. We're always looking for scale, but it's not the ultimate. I think if everyone does a bit, it could be a good start. So in a way, the issue is rather complex and very difficult to sort of embrace in one single figure. So I think people should both focus on trying to meet their own goals, acting as fast as possible, investing as fast as possible for the transition, and focus less on blaming others.
Thank you for joining us on this first episode of Beyond by Meridiam. We hope you're as excited as we are to explore the world of infrastructure. Stay tuned for more captivating stories, insights, and innovation in the episodes to come. In the meantime, until next time, keep looking beyond for a brighter future. Goodbye.